Hello, everybody. This is Marisa Cantu, and I am recording on behalf of Group 1, which consists of Francisca Aniki, Nada Bashir, Gloria Maduka, Viraj Patel, and Yelena Ball, and myself. Although immunization provides important benefits to public health safety, risks associated with vaccination can still occur. The practice of safe routine vaccination must rely on guidance from national and global health institutions, such as the Institute of Medicine and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. As well, the practice of evidence-based medicine requires randomized controlled trials that are rigorous in study design while maintaining safe and ethical study practices. Therefore, quality safety studies definitively identifying a causal effect between thimerosal-containing vaccines and autism or autism spectrum disorder may never be proven. The CDC published a consensus statement asserting that no association exists between thimerosal exposure from vaccines and the development of ASD. However, some of the studies included in the consensus statement had major methodological flaws, which significantly limit their credibility. The CDC consensus statement included a cohort study by Verstraeten et al., which used data from the Vaccine Safety Data Link. Investigators found no association between thimerosal exposure from vaccines and the development of ASD. However, these results only included the last phase of the study, and the results from the first 4 phases were omitted. In an internal presentation of Study Phase 1, findings showed that children who were exposed to greater than 25 micrograms of mercury from vaccines at 1 month of age were 7.6 times more likely to have an ASD diagnosis compared with children who had no exposure to mercury from vaccines. Similarly, in Phase 2 of the same study, infants exposed to mercury from vaccines at 3 months of age were 2.5 times more likely to have an ASD diagnosis compared with those unexposed. A personal email from the primary investigator to a colleague, obtained by abiding with the U.S. Freedom of Information Act, expressed the conflict and complications of drug safety studies, stating, quote, "I do not wish to be the advocate of the anti-vaccine lobby and sound like being convinced that thimerosal is or was harmful, but at least I feel we should use sound scientific argumentation and not let our standards be dictated by our desire to disprove an unpleasant theory," end quote. The CDC consensus statement included another study by Price et al., which examined prenatal and postnatal exposure to thimerosal from vaccines and immunoglobulins given during pregnancy. This study received negative critique from several different sources, mainly addressing the concern of overmatching in the study design. Investigators may match cases to controls or exposed and unexposed subjects on characteristics of interest. While matching case to controls helps mitigate study confounders or enhance stratified analysis in observational studies, unnecessary or erroneous or inappropriate matching causes overmatching. Overmatching in this study occurred on variables of age, health maintenance organization, vaccination schedule, and vaccine manufacturer. Findings in Price et al. Showed mercury exposure varied from 42 micrograms to 125 micrograms, while the within strata range for mercury exposure did not vary by more than 15 micrograms. Conversely, when examining prenatal exposure to thimerosal, which was not affected by overmatching, a statistically significant relative risk of up to 8.73-fold for ASD was found in children of mothers exposed to thimerosal during pregnancy. A cohort study by Hivid et al. found no increase in the risk of ASD among children who received thimerosal-containing vaccines compared with those who received thimerosal-free vaccines. However, the major issue with this study was the age at which the children were evaluated. Case controls, in other words, the ASD-free children, were often as young as 1 year of age, while the mean age of the ASD diagnosis in this study was 4.7 years, plus or minus 1.7 years. This means that the ASD-free controls may have been too young to be diagnosed and may not have actually been ASD-free. While Taylor et al. Claimed vaccines were not associated with autism, this meta-analysis had many limitations, including unverified reports, underreporting, inconsistent data quality, absence of an unvaccinated control group, and many reports filed in connection with litigation. These limitations are often inherent when gathering data from the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, or VAERS. Starting in 2000, thimerosal use in vaccines was decreasing, but it has not been completely eliminated. According to Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, the influenza vaccine, meningococcal vaccine, and Japanese encephalitis vaccine still contain significant amounts of thimerosal, and the tetanus and diphtheria, or TD vaccine, contain trace amounts of thimerosal. Furthermore, the FDA has not yet banned the use of thimerosal in vaccines, which means thimerosal-preserved vaccines can still be manufactured and marketed to patients. Since large, reproducible, and methodologically sound studies to examine the association between vaccines and the development of ASD cannot be ethically conducted, we must remain diligent to avoid thimerosal exposure in the pediatric population, including while in utero. Thank you for listening.